is up, everybody? Welcome to Truth and Transparency. On your way out, on your way in. During the show, you're going to have an opinion. Make yourself known. Thumbs up the video or thumbs it down. We're going to jump right into it. Happy St. Patrick's Day, everybody. Did you guys get out there? Hopefully you guys did. Get yourself some. Let's see. I know I did. Let me see what I got here. Somewhere. Let's see. The video. What you guys are looking at right here, this is for you, Annie Potts. Katovich, another Jack, but Jack Katovich, he was one of the Jacks, and Ethan had paid him or whatever. And I think it is important to show you guys that this was Jack Katovich's white Elantra back in the day. Going and grabbing this thing. Jack Katovich, affiliated person, drives a white Elantra. There's Jonathan Lee Riches from 2022. So you have to ask yourselves, if you're going to talk about somebody that they had that was a person of interest, the girls said 4 a.m. They would have went and looked at the video there on November 18th, saw the white Elantra, and that would have been somebody that would have been a person of interest, in my opinion. So go ahead and soak that in right there. But that's Jack Katovich's white Honda Elantra. Next up. Let's see. There's something else in here. All right, back in the day, another picture that was surfacing around. Dylan had some friends, and one of the friends here, this chick, Bridget had a dagger, had a knife tattooed in between her tits. Not sure if you guys remember that back in the day, but I thought that was very interesting. Wanted to pull that back up. And then her and her boyfriend were posing naked in pictures, but they managed to keep their body parts covered. So Bridget's definitely hardcore. I think I'd want her on my team. Let's see. Other thing I want to show here is a couple other memory lane picks. Well, tonight's headliner, let's introduce it. Can you guys believe it? Here it is. Josh Clark, May 10th, just a couple weeks after April 18th, when Bryan Kohberger's alibi would pop. Josh Clark updated his profile as he was stargazing. Again, May 10th, 2024. That's on the thumbnail there for you. Just make that a little bit bigger. There you go. Lana, where is your Irish car bomb? We did Irish car bombs earlier. I don't have any right now, though. So, but there's literally just a couple weeks after the alibi came out. So I don't care what anybody wants to say. That's absolutely fucking wild. And so I just put it out there, is Idaho State Police trolling Bryan Kohberger? Is this kid trolling Bryan Kohberger or what? Exactly. That's just straight trolling. Absolutely wild, right? Let's look at one. I got a couple of things I want to show. Okay, now here's a good one. On December 12th, 2022, from 5:30 to 7:30, they did, with the Idaho State Police, as you can see here, fentanyl education project. And that was Cookies with a Cop, December 12th, 2022, Post Falls High School. And that was being promoted by none other than Josh Clark's wifey, December 12th. You guys know what was going to pop off December 12th, 13th is when we all get to find out and go ham over a white Elantra. So I want to share that. Now, all right, so I'm going to read you guys something. 2016. Now, there's been a pattern with this Josh Clark. So the word I want you guys to remember is pattern. Okay. So pattern. Now, his phone is buzzing again. Isaiah Wall is 19 and handsome, with freckled cheeks and biceps from his days as a wrestler. Like any teen, he spends an ungodly amount of time on his phone, checking in with his mom, seeing who wants to party, and confirming his work schedule at the gun Hollister manufacturer in Post Falls. Now, this is an exclusive from the Islander back November 17th, 2016. But mixed in between those messages are texts from someone named Josh, demanding that Isaiah gets him more drugs. Can you order up from S tomorrow, 1 zip, same as last time? And that's in quotes as a text. Now, back in the Venmos, you can go back and search. These girls are paying and writing each other and saying the word zip, by the way. I gave them the grace and benefit of the doubt that that was for the zip ties that they would purchase to play their little games of their drinking games. So, but anyways, this Josh kid's demanding that Isaac get him more drugs. And the street lingo for an ounce of crystal meth is zip. I was going to talk to you about that. Isaac replies, Isaiah replies, I think it'd be weird going from a gram to an ounce. Can I order up a quarter for tomorrow and do the ounce a few days after? ? Go for the full, Josh writes. It's not for you, remember? He said he had it, so let's go for it. You're getting it for friends, in quotes, so don't worry. By all indications, Josh isn't a friend, but rather Detective Josh Clark with the Idaho State Police. Isaiah had been roped into helping the Idaho State Police investigate drug trafficking in the area, Coeur d'Alene Police tells the Inlander. So Coeur d'Alene Police, CDA, tell this to this reporter that wrote up this special. Often promised leniency for alleged crimes, informants are used on the front lines of the drug war, with little training and few safeguards as they perform high-risk police work on the cheap. Critics complain that the practice often exploits vulnerable people, many of them unstable and or drug addicted, with little regard to their safety. The Idaho State Police won't confirm whether Isaiah snitched for the agency, and through his supervisor, Clark, declined an interview request. However, texts and Facebook messages from Isaiah's phone match up perfectly with undercover drug buys detailed in a felony case in Kootenai County. The arresting officer in that investigation, none other than ISP Detective Josh Clark. Isaiah's mother, Courtney McKinney, says she didn't know her son worked as an informant until one day she went through his phone and found back and forth text messages like this exchange from May 22nd or May 23rd. Josh texted at 9:10 p.m. in quotes. "They not awake yet, or they can't handle the wait. I've messaged both, and they just haven't texted back," Isaiah responds. "I don't know if it's because they can't get it right now, but if I hit them up anymore, it will just look weird." "Okay," Josh writes. "Well, wait, gotta look natural." 6 days after that exchange, and just 11 days after he started texting with this Josh person, Isaiah is found dead from a single gunshot to the head. There are no known witnesses, and while Coeur d'Alene police are still investigating, they say they have yet to find any connection between his work as an informant and his death. In any case, Isaiah's mother isn't convinced by the explanations she's been given. I just have been in the dark this whole time," Kenny says. "Nobody's contacted me or anything, and it makes a big difference on the grieving whether he took his own life or whether it was snuffed out." By the time Isaiah was 14, he watched his father, Marcus, be pinballed in and out of prison for various felonies. Each time, his mom says, it tears him up. Marcus is Isa's hero, McKinney says. Around this time, McKinney herself starts to unravel. She's been working as a dental hygienist, making decent money, but struggling to raise Isaiah and his two younger siblings on her own. The guy she's dating doesn't really warm up to the kids. She stays out late and drinks, leaving Isaiah to take care of the kids himself. "I robbed him of a lot of his childhood in him having to babysit his sister and brother with me out having fun," she says. "I have so much guilt." Most of Isaiah's friends had no idea about his double life. Without much supervision, 14-year-old Isaiah is left to figure it out on his own. One night around 11 p.m., he and a friend are riding bikes in the neighborhood. Where he grew up, it was just north of the Coeur d'Alene resort. Police in an unmarked car stop the boys because they don't have lights on or reflectors. They find a foot-tall, long bong in Isaac's backpack, according to the police report. Prosecutors eventually dropped the case, but Isaiah's contact with the justice system continues. He regularly breaks curfew and skips school, and McKinney kicks him out of the house as a consequence, friends say. He sleeps at a neighbor's or crashes with buddies. McKinney feels that she's lost control and calls the police. "I was terrified," she recalls. McKinney pauses with a sigh. "I'm so stubborn. I feel bad about it all now. All those times I called the police, I thought I was doing what I should have been doing." A judge ends up sending Isaiah to a youth ranch for troubled teens near Yakima. He escapes more than once, his mom says, and hitchhikes all the way back to Coeur d'Alene. One time, she recalls, he arrives at 3 a.m. The soles of his shoes were worn out. Matt Beaver, his 4th grade teacher at Classical Christian Academy in Post Falls, sees potential in Isaiah as a neutral leader and a fierce competitor. At recess, Isaiah organizes soccer and football games without being condescending or bossy. And come Christmas time, when other students gave Starbucks gift cards or golf balls, Isaiah gave his teachers a stack of his favorite baseball cards. "Knowing how much he was into sports and how much the cards were worth, I tried over and over to give them back," says Beaver. "I continued to stay in touch with him through the years because I knew he didn't have enough voices in his life pointing out the good, positive part of him, and far too many pointing out the negatives." In 8th grade, Isaiah starts to wrestle in school, McKinney says, to help deal with his behavioral issues. He goes undefeated in his first year. He eventually moves back home, bringing with him his friend Chris Anderson to live with him, and McKinney and the 2 other kids. She pushes them to finish high school, but the boys have other ideas. They work odd jobs and hustle for money. They paint a garage in exchange for $200 each. Isaiah, about at the age of 17, buys an ounce of pot and flips it for a profit, Anderson says. Then he buys more. At his peak, Isaiah moves about 3 pounds of weed in a month. Anderson estimates, and his network of connections grows. Isaiah knows people, and eventually he's slinging small quantities of cocaine, some acid, mushrooms, or Molly when he can get it. Friends start calling him Frosty because he was always making it snow, Anderson says, adding that Isaiah drew a line at heroin and meth because that is some bunk-ass shit. Girls call Isaiah the Hollister Kid after the trendy SoCal clothing line. Isaiah stands over 6 feet tall with a six-pack, abs, diamonds in his ears, a gold chain, and a watch to match. He's popular with the girls, but one stands out, Amy. She's different, kind of quiet with straight blonde hair down the middle of her back and a nose ring. His first love. They date on and off for about 2.5 years, and after breaking up, managed to stay friends. In April of this year, they take a drive around Coeur d'Alene to catch up. I remember that would have been 2016. They park, smoke a bowl, and let their feet hang over the side of a dock. Amy tells him about her classes at North Idaho College. He talks about moving into a new apartment next month and says he's been working for a gun holster manufacturer and doing construction on the side for his grandpa. He was saying how he doesn't want to be in the same stuff anymore, Amy said, referring to his drug dealing days. He'd been doing this for a couple of years and it's just not really going anywhere. And he was just tired of it. On Facebook, Isaiah, he would post about fast cars, guns, Donald Trump, mostly because of gun rights, girls, and partying. He's amassed more than 1,000 friends, but his posts also paint him as a high-spirited teenager who often feels alone and helpless. I'm over this bullshit, he says. I just need a solid place to live, he writes in June of 2015. Later he posts, nobody ever hears anyone's cry for help until it's too late. The Idaho State Police won't say whether Isaiah Wall worked for them or not. At times, he wants to give up, been thinking about dipping out for a while. There's not too much to offer me here, in quotes. Then there's the text message Isaiah sent Amy the month before he began working for the Idaho State Police, hinting that he's begun to look forward to. It's hard to find people nowadays with actual goals, especially the same goals as you. I feel like a lot of people just live day by day and don't really give a fuck about what's down the road. They just live in the here and now. That used to be my problem, but I've actually started to consider my future, and I know what I want to do in this life and where I want to be. Now, at 8:17 a.m. on May 18, 2016, the day his father was to be sentenced for a parole violation, Isaiah Wall's phone begins to ring. He lets it go to voicemail, but the calls continue. He finally picks it up. It's the Idaho State Police. The person on the other end of the line tells Isaiah they know he was involved in a hit and run 2 days before. He needs to come immediately to the Idaho State Police headquarters in Coeur d'Alene, according to Anderson, his friend that was there sitting next to him, who says he was with him that day. ISP officials have refused to confirm whether they ever employed Isaiah as an informant. Anderson says this is what followed. Isaiah tells the caller that he has no clue about this alleged hit and run. While still on the phone, he walks around his car. There's no damage that he can see. He assures the caller, "We need to inspect the car ourselves," the caller says. "Get down here immediately." The two teenagers hop into Isaiah's forest green Mustang, 22-inch rims, speaker box in the back, and go to the Idaho State Police building on West Wilbur Avenue. A receptionist tells them someone will be out shortly, and they go outside to wait and smoke a cigarette. 2 Idaho State Police officers show up. Isaiah Wall, one says. Wall raises his hand. "You're under arrest." Isaiah asks why. Anderson says, as they're putting handcuffs on him, one officer answers quietly in his ear for being a motherfucking drug dealer. The officer tells Anderson to beat it, and he hops a bus to a friend's house to wait. Isaiah shows up hours later. There was no hit and run, he tells Anderson. There weren't even any charges against me, at least nothing yet officially. Isaiah tells Anderson that the detectives took him into a conference room and told him they'd been watching him for months. Someone very close to him had snitched, though they wouldn't say who. The detectives tell Isaiah he's facing 10 years in prison for cocaine trafficking, Anderson says. So he has two options: face the charges or cut a deal and cooperate. They want him to do an undercover drug buy that very day, Anderson says. But Isaiah pleads to postpone it. He has to make it to his father's sentencing hearing at 3 p.m. That afternoon, Marcus Wall is sentenced to more than a year in prison. Isaiah is devastated. Soon, Josh will enter his life. Grandma, I don't know what to do, Isaiah texts at 10:46 a.m. on May 24th. I always feel like my life is falling apart. Minutes later, he's back to texting with Josh. I've hit both of them up this morning. S, just the letter S, hit me up at like 12:30 last night, and I said to push it to today. What's he got? Josh asks. He just said dope, and it's going super fast. Okay, set it up for 4-ish. See if he has a full for you and how much. Josh then adds in a text, plan to be at the office at 3:15 and we'll go and get it. Isaiah is nervous that Josh wants him to pop in without getting the green light from the drug dealer. Wait, what? Isaiah asks Josh. You want me to just say I'm on my way even if he doesn't answer? That'll be really weird and definitely not like me. I ask everyone to come over before I do, and if I just show up wanting an ounce of meth when I've only picked up a gram from him, he'll think that that's shady as fuck. Josh responds, hey, calm down, bud. We're not going to go cold calling. We'll wait till he says to come over, but we have to plan for it. By 5 p.m., it's finally set up. Detective Josh Clark recounts in a court record. So the way that this was all figured out was they were looking at the court documents after Isaiah Wall's death. And so Detective Josh Clark recounts in a court record a drug buy that day. He records it, but doesn't name Isaiah Wall. In sterilized legal language, he writes about an unnamed informant who leads detectives to location of the drug deal. Detectives listen to the conversation through a wire. They want to get an ounce soon, the informant says, according to Clark's report. Okay, no trouble, the dealer says. Later that week, about 3:30 a.m. on May 28th, Isaiah sits by himself sipping a beer. He can't sleep. He's done 3 controlled buys within the past 2 weeks for over an ounce of meth, according to court documents. The Islander linked to Isaiah. All 3 buys were from the same person, more of an acquaintance than a close friend. But later in the week, he's supposed to snitch on a buddy who's fallen into harder drugs recently. Isaiah starts messaging friends. He's going crazy by himself, he tells them. Some respond, but it's too late to come and chill. Isaiah finally falls asleep. Sam Tarkington recalls seeing Isaiah at a party about a week before his death. They had been flirting with the idea of dating for a few months back and forth at that point. He was sitting at a table with his head in his hands. She didn't know what was wrong, but she had never seen him like that, not that stressed before ever. The kid he knew was gone. That was the carefree, confident kid. He was like, I want to tell you, but I can't talk to you about this. Sam remembers. It was weighing on him heavily, whatever it was. The party's over. The girls are gone. Isaiah's buddy Chris Anderson left hours ago. Another friend, Ricky Robinson, is asleep in the house. It's the early morning hours of May 29th. Isaiah and a friend named William are the last ones up, sitting around the empty fire pit in the backyard of a house where Isaiah has been living. The stars are out. The stars are out. The stars are out. And Isaiah and William are out of their minds after dropping acid. He remembers William's telling this part of the story. While they're tripping, Isaiah twirls a .40 caliber handgun on his finger, ejects an unfired round from the chamber, and snatches it up in the air. At 2:26 a.m., Isaiah texts one of the girls who left earlier. "Thanks for saying bye. I'm holding my girl's hair back. You know I wish I could have stayed. Just please come back." At 2:41, Sam calls him for help with her drunk friend. It's a short conversation. Sam can hear William in the background, and the two boys are laughing. Now it's about 4:30, and the sun starts to rise. William goes into the kitchen to get a drink of water. He moves to the couch to pass out. William will later say, and Isaiah is still in the backyard with his pistol alone. A gunshot wakes William up. He says he staggers off the couch and stumbles into the yard. Isaiah is laying on the ground. An open Zippo lighter and a gun are at his feet. A pool of blood expands around his head. Courtney McKinney can't sleep. Guilt crushes her. Guilt for every stupid argument with her son, for calling the police on him when he was a kid, for every time he needed his mom and she wasn't there. Then she gets his iPhone back from the funeral home and begins her own investigation. She methodically combs through his texts, his Facebook and Instagram accounts, looking for clues. She stops on a thread of messages with Josh. She takes pictures of the texts and of his location data, placing him at the Idaho State Police headquarters in Coeur d'Alene 3 times in the past month. She finds a note Isaiah left for himself in his phone on May 26th, noting his own license plate number and that of a quote-unquote a DEA car. McKinney has 1,000 questions. That's his mom. She records her meetings with Coeur d'Alene police detectives, with people at the coroner's office, employees at the funeral home, and several of Isaiah's friends. She pays to have all this data extracted off of his phone and hires a private investigator. She isn't ruling out the possibility that her son took his own life. She knows he struggled with depression and is upfront about his difficult home life and her role in all of that. But things aren't adding up, she says. Isaiah is right-handed, and friends say he always fired his gun right-handed. But the police report indicated he fired with his left hand and then fell on his left side. Isaiah was planning to move into a new apartment the very next day. His stuff was already packed in the car, and he'd been texting his new roommate for the past couple days and hours leading up to his death. McKinney was supposed to help him move. There was no autopsy performed. Neither the Kootenai County Coroner's Office nor the Coeur d'Alene Police ordered one. The coroner nevertheless ruled the shooting a suicide after looking at the scene. A Coeur d'Alene police detective tells the Inlander that an autopsy might have been ordered if investigators had known he was an informant at the time. 6 months after Isaiah's death, the Coeur d'Alene police investigation is still not complete. In a 25-page report released to the Inlander, there is only one mention of Isaiah's work as a drug informant from an interview with William more than a week after Isaiah's death. There is no record of any communication with the Idaho State Police. CPD Detective Jared Renew says that there are still a few loose ends he needs to tie up, but can't comment further at the risk of jeopardizing the integrity of the investigation. What investigation? It's a suicide, I thought. Renew meets up with McKinney, Isaiah's mom. Earlier this month, he tells her, "I was at the crime scene from From everything I saw, there wasn't anything that was overly suspicious. But what if he was murdered? McKinney asked Detective Renew. If she could be worried about like the guy who's going to jail because of Isaiah, he ratted on this guy. What if he wants revenge on my whole family? Renew doesn't have many answers. He says the Idaho State Police don't keep CPD in the loop. I've just been left in the dark to do my own investigation, she tells Renew. The conference room inside the Idaho State Police headquarters in Coeur d'Alene is flooded in this fluorescent light with a long table surrounded by chairs. This is allegedly where Isaiah agreed to become an informant. Seated around the table now are two sergeants as well as the captain in charge of the district, John Kempf, a tall veteran investigator with graying temples. He's the guy that retired and they made look like Ellen DeGeneres' sister. They've agreed to speak generally about the agency's use of confidential informants, but say they cannot comment on whether Isaiah worked for them. Doing so, they say, would betray any potential deal to keep his identity a secret and would undermine the entire confidential informant program. No one will want to secretly feed them information if they put one of their sources, quote unquote, on Front Street, even if that source is dead. Kempf has worked drug investigations for the Idaho State Police for 16 years and now teaches new detectives how to build drug cases. One of the main functions of the Idaho State Police is this drug, like building drug cases. That's what Idaho State Police is known for. Detective training includes a quote-unquote significant portion of an 80-hour class dedicated to working with informants in his curriculum. Kempf draws from questionable, dangerous, and reckless examples of informant use from across the country for lessons on what not to do. The Idaho State Police refuse to release any policies or guidelines related to informants, citing a clause in state law exempting information that could reveal investigative techniques or the identity of a confidential informant. Around the conference room table, Kempf and his two detectives remain in their seats and being defendant of their secret sources. Well, we'll always have confidential informants, Kempf says. Always. They've always been a part of narcotics work and always will be. They are a necessity tool to drug investigations. They are necessary. The biggest advantage of using confidential informants, Kempf says, is their intimate knowledge of quote unquote the drug world or drug culture they're involved in, both socially and legally speaking. Confidential informants have access to places and people that detectives typically would not. For police to walk into a drug house, or any house for that matter, they need a warrant. As to the training that the informants receive to conduct police work, Kempf says, the short answer is, without giving specifics, is they were involved in this criminal activity way before we met them, so they know the streets better than we do. They oftentimes know the person that they're buying drugs from way better than we do. They know how to operate. They know whether or not they have weapons. There are safeguards in place, and the program is closely and continually scrutinized, Kempf and his two sergeants say, declining to give specifics. Kempf adds that they have a checklist of criteria to assess potential informants, including whether they have a history of depression or mental health issues. This kid should have never been one. Typically, the problems arise, Kempf says, when informants tell on themselves. He adds, however, that he isn't aware of an informant in Idaho being killed on the job. Kempf, what a fucking idiot. In quotes, the first thing we say is, don't tell anybody, Kempf says. It's not because we're worried about our case, but we know this could go sideways the more people that are involved. Alexandra Natapoff is a professor at the Loyola Law School in Los Angeles And one of the nation's leading experts on the use of informants says police and prosecutors have near complete discretion in the use of confidential informants as a matter of public policy. The constitutional rights of defendants, she argues, are excused in the name of keeping a source of information anonymous, and vulnerable people, perhaps young, addicted to drugs, unable to afford an attorney, or otherwise incapable of asserting their rights, are sent to do the work of a trained police officer. Rarely, she says, do the specific details of that work come to light. Like any risky public policy, sometimes using informants is worth the risk, she says, but right now, the system is not designed to evaluate the true costs and benefits of informants. The public is asked to take it on faith. That needs to change, especially where we know that the costs to the young and the vulnerable are particularly high. She points to one shocking example from Florida, in which police there enlisted a small-time college-age pot dealer, Rachel Hoffman. Yes, a female, Rachel Hoffman. The subject of a New York expose on the young confidential informants, was sent to buy a large quantity of drugs and weapons back in 2008. The dealers found the wire in her purse and killed her with the very gun police wanted her to buy. The reckless use of informants leading to their torture or murder often goes unnoticed, professor says, unless their families have the means to hire attorneys and see the cases through lengthy legal battles. This professor says that this is what making exposing Isaiah's story, a case of a kid with little support or resources, all the more significant. Part of the tragedy is that for people like Isaiah, who've already been devalued by the system, their stories never get told and their names are never heard, she says. Logically speaking, there are thousands of Isaiah Walls out there all over the country, and we will never know about them because their friends and family don't have the resources to produce an outcry and raise public attention. She adds, it's possible that if it was a suicide, it may have been because he felt despondent and trapped because he was an informant. For someone in his situation, you could imagine how he could see that as a death sentence. McKinney sits in the driver's seat of her navy blue Pontiac Grand Prix, parked in a cemetery not far from where Isaiah grew up. You can see his grave from the road. It's the one with the statue of an eagle, his favorite football team, flowers, photos, and a notebook. Smoke from her cigarette billows out of the car and into the bright sky. Her brown hair is twisted into a nest on top of her head. She's wearing a baseball t-shirt with blue sleeves and a gold watch, both which were her son's, Isaiah's. She feels better having spoke with detectives, though she has yet to hear from the Idaho State Police. She is still unsure of when or if she'll have answers. My son was just kind of tossed aside as a drug dealer and as disposable, somebody not productive in society, she says. And that's the worst part for me. She visits Isaiah's grave and posts to his Facebook page almost daily. On Sunday, November 20th, she invited friends and family to his grave to celebrate. It would have been Isaiah's 20th birthday. In the meantime, she's left poring over pictures and videos of him saved on her phone. She stops on a screenshot of one of the last communications Isaiah received on his phone. On May 31st, 2 days after Isaiah died, Josh texts again, in quotes, Wednesday, going to work. 2 days after his death, again. So when I hear about text messages and that they're not staged and that yada, 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 yeah. So those of you guys just joining, here is the pictures that you guys missed. On December 12th, 2022, which was right before that they released or come out and help us with the White Honda Elantra, we have Post Falls, where, right by where Coeur d'Alene is Joshua Clark's wife, December 12th, Cookies with a Cop. And it's the Idaho State Police. Yeah, this is 2022. Fentanyl Education Project. Then cover here is this is part of the story that I read you guys, is right here, Detective Josh Clark with the Idaho State Police. And then here's Josh Clark. Again, maybe it's his dad, but Joshua Clark, literally May 10th, 2024, Joshua Clark changes his pick to literally, and he literally stargazing. And that's just 3 weeks after they announced Bryan Kohberger's alibi. Then look at this. November 16, 2022, Josh Clark is with Taylor, and they were raising money for his recovery fund. They're always talking about drugs and the war on drugs. Look at this. Unbelievable. Then taking us back to one of the first, I shouldn't say it's going to be, here we go. Okay. This is the vehicle that matches your suspect vehicle. Jack Katovich, he was paid by Ethan, what would seem like to get a ride. There's your white Honda Elantra that the kid drove with the sunroof. And so when police officers would have seen that video, not knowing, on November 18th, they would have been looking in the circle of friends or whoever, and they would have seen that Jack Katovich, who got paid, remember Jack Katovich paid Ethan's GoFundMe $6, all this sick shit. Like they were like, remember like the 3:33 in the morning Venmos? Well, this is Jack Katovich's Elantra. And he paid Ethan $6 to his GoFundMe. He received a Venmo. And so this one was for Miss Potts out here. I think they would have been looking into this kid, seeing that he gave Ethan a ride. This is Jack Katovich's. So when people say, oh, who do I think the J is? Well, fucking throw Jack Katovich in there. Jack Katovich had the car. Jack Katovich had the Venmo payment. So taking us back. And I just want to give a shout out to my boy right here. Okay. Look at this. Gentlemanly Riches, baby. I went through all my old stuff. I took a screenshot of this, December 7th, 2022. Literally, who I think that he got that from and knew about that. I think he had a little birdie in his ear. I think that birdie was Steve Gonsalves. He was in Idaho. He went to the Gonsalves' house. They're cool. Yeah. So right there. Then there's, I told you this girl, Bridget, who has, there she is. Back in the day. God, I'm hot. Do you guys remember this shit? November 20th, 2022. This is the second presser day And God, I'm hot. And she has a freaking dagger. Okay. Bridget, Dylan's friends. These are Dylan's friends from Boise, baby. Okay. I got all this stuff just waiting to unleash on all this old school stuff. All those kids were stabbed to death. Don't forget. Let's see what else I want to show you guys. I think that's enough right now. I'm taking us right to. Any questions? I'll go for the last 15 minutes. I got a bunch of more information here. Yeah, and that last name is Wall, Wall. So, who sent the zip Venmos? Those were sent between the girls. I have to go back and pull up all my Venmos again. More info, spill it, girl. I got so much stuff. I do know that Bethany was just recently pulled over for tailgating too close. So you guys can throw that in the mix of when people like to pull people over and get them in trouble. So Bethany was pulled over, if you recall. Whose chest is that? One of Dylan's friends. Hi, I think I've always been hot. I keep So do you think that this Clark guy has something to do with the kids? I don't know. I know that there's a pattern with this Clark kid, and his wife runs the opioid. She's the director for the opioid research team and shit like that. Lana, if you're a relative of the deceased, do you need to get? Yeah. What do you mean? If you want to get something? Yeah, I usually go through you can go through FOIA. I mean, if you're in touch with the police of the deceased that you're trying to get something through, you can tell them what you want and ask them either, are you guys going to give it to me or do I need to FOIA? How do you want me to go about this? So hopefully that helped. Kim, keep up the great work, Lana. Thank you so much, member, for 20 months. Cheers. Yeah. Happy St. Patrick's Day to everybody out there. Whose chest? Dylan's friends. These are Dylan's friends. Her Boise friends. I'm looking into, I have a lead on a couple different accounts that these officers were using. And they were just like pretending to be like fake people with the accounts when they were, and how they would contact informants. So I'm looking into that. I was given a pretty good lead with this. What's going on that when informants are getting out of line, or when people that are informants in that area are winding up dead on really whack circumstances, like 1-car fatalities, this young man's story. And it all centers around all this drug stuff, building cases and people trying to get out of their own problems. So I want to know what this Joshua Clark kid, what problems was he trying to get out of? Because something's not up with this boy. Really whack shit. Joshua Clark, there's a Joshua Clark that is he's with the Idaho State Police. So, wow. Josh Clark got promoted after Isaiah's death. He's now ATF. I talked to Dave here and there. Yep. Susie asked. Yep. He's a good boy. Good kid. It amazes me. It amazes me. It amazes me what's going on. Besides, like, this case, what's going on in Idaho? It's absolutely fucking wild. But when people know that you're down to do whatever, and you have a job with the government, it's miraculous how these people just get promoted, So, well, it just makes sense, guys, when I brought up the whole Jack Katovich part, that he would be a suspect in the point of what the police would be looking at, in terms of the vehicle that was there at that time. Here it is, and then he gave Ethan a ride. He then paid $6 to Ethan's, so I would not be surprised if this kid, based on the different things, and if they were like, well, you give us your DNA. And if the kid said no, you know what I mean? Which I would say no. I didn't do anything wrong, and I'm still going to say no. I'm not giving you my fucking DNA. Fuck you. But when you don't give up your DNA, oh, you got something to hide. It's like, no, I don't have anything to hide. The people weren't giving over their DNA. There were people that were giving over, and they were giving up their phones and shit. I mean, 68 devices. It's a lot of devices. Yeah, woman doing chaos. How you doing, baby girl? The reputation of police is destroyed for me. Yeah, it's not in a good place right now. It's really not. The trust is gone. Trust. So. Yeah. It would make sense. Being nervous and waiting to call the police if you, because these kids, the way they want to tell their story, they think they're going to get in trouble for something else that's not related to that. And remember, that's what Steve G was saying. Hey guys, come forward, tell the cops what you know. You're not gonna get in trouble for underage drinking or drug. He was saying, he was telling everybody that. He thinks that those kids watch the news, though. They don't. I found that out real quick. Oh. Truth and transparency, the Venmo from Liz Katovich that said 3:30 sent late night of the 12th. Atlanta is lit. Yeah, that's brother sister. Yes, there's a bunch of weird stuff that happened with these payments and what it was for, and sending a payment and saying it was for like 3:30 last night. I know that one of the Gray girls did that as well. Just a bunch of but yeah, that's exactly who it is. Liz Katovich and Jack Katovich are brother and sister. Molly Gray, yep, 3:30, yep. Molly Gray. Can you give us a time on the Snapchats you've seen? You asked me this the other day. I'm not talking about those. So it's fun. It's interesting that you're all about the Snapchats. That's what all your questions were yesterday. I can just tell you that the defense wanted those, and they got them. I think for us to only be seeing like text messages that were put in motion limine, it's interesting because we all know that people talk through, especially 2022, Snapchat, WhatsApp, Facebook, Instagram, Signal, Viber. Viber. Have you guys seen the Monica Santelli trial? So that's a wild one. Yep. So, I mean, hey, defense team, just in case you guys don't know about this, but this is Jack Katovich's car. I'm sure that they do, though. But this matches your vehicle that would have been in that area and that was being drove in that area. There's Venmo payments about Jack Katovich driving people around. This car was 100% out driving around at the time of the crime, before it, after it. So right here is something that I went back and really wanted to go grab, because based off of what Idaho State Police / Moscow Police Department would have had, is girls talking about 4 a.m. and going and looking and finding like that white vehicle. So then they would have been interested in people in and around that area between 2 and 4:30. The time that they got home, and 4:30. So this would have been like popping off for those people, like the detectives. And if it wasn't, then that would be another thing to say, well, how could this not be on your radar? How do you not, this matches that car. This is that car. So, and someone says, and Bryan's Yoka did not have a sunroof. Yeah, look at, actually I just pulled up Warhol's. I can't wait to see the picture that they say that they have, where you can't, that someone's saying that the car doesn't have a front license plate. I can't wait to see this picture of it, like where the front license plate is like non-existent. I'll pull up some of my old stuff. Actually, the transparency. Was that who Ethan was driving home on the body cam? Yeah, no, I'd have to go back and check. I know that he was driving a vehicle somebody claims that was a stolen vehicle. I was laughing. And she knows who, but I have to go watch Jack videos now. Yeah. Go back and pull out your old school stuff. I'm going to do a live where I redump all my stuff. Oh, wow. Oh my gosh, no way. Oh, wow. Okay, so yeah, wow. All right, these cops use their names and they whatever the fake account name that they're using. That's normal to have, like, go by, like, I don't know, Eric Johnson. How about that? On May 18th. Wow. This working. Neither are replying. Oh man, at this time, let's plan for tomorrow. Hit him up tomorrow and get it set up. I'll call you tomorrow. Did it go down like you thought? With your dad. These people are sick. All right. I gotta get back to doing some work, but I'll be live tomorrow with the Karen Reed case. What is up, Hella? Hella! All this excited utterance is going on in the Idaho4 case. Go ahead and drop my girl's link in chat, love. Hella's always talking about something interesting, so. Is that right? Again, thank you so much, Eric. But like I said, I'll be back in the morning tomorrow with the Karen Reed case, the motion limiting live from Dedham, Norfolk Superior Court down there. I will check my messenger. Thank you so much. Those of you guys that celebrate St. Patrick's Day, I did as well. If you guys have a car bomb, it's really tasty. Really tasty. But tomorrow night, I'll be back with, I think I'm going to do an old school show. So I'm going to show I can say all of the stuff I have. It would take a long time, but I'm going to go through and sort through some of the stuff that I'll put up a bunch of pictures up from back in the beginning. I think you guys would like that. So again, on your way out, thumbs up. On your way down, thumbs it down. So if you're coming up, thumbs it up. If you're going down. Have a good night, everybody. Thank you so much. Appreciate you guys. Thank you, moderators. Much love. Peace.